Hey guys, so I wrapped up the series on a record for every year in my life, which went from 1969 through 2021, basically doing a decade a week. So I'm going to kind of do the prequel episode. These will be records from years before I was born. So I'm going to start in 1968, work my way backwards as far as I can. My collection gets more and more limited. Um, 1968, we're going to represent that with this um, Hungarian guitarist, sort of uh, gypsy influenced jazz. Uh, Gabor Szabo, Dreams. This is a fancy Vinyl Me Please version. We'll see sort of some fancy Vinyl Me Please versions and some less fancy stuff. 1967. Let's Jimi Hendrix experience. Are you experienced? Modern reissue. That's good stuff. 1966. Daydream, the Lovin' Spoonful on the Kama Sutra label. 1965. A Love Supreme, a Love Supreme. 1964. Gets Gilberto. We all know a girl from Ipanema. The Bossa Nova. 1963. Joan Baez in concert. So, a little bit of folk for you. 1962. We'll go back to some Vinyl Me Please jazz. Lee Morgan Quintet, Take 12. 1961, this will be a bit of a cheat. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Roots and Herbs. So this is a tone poet. So the album was originally released in 1970, but it was recorded in 1961. Not having much else in 1961 in my collection, I'm saving Miles Davis. 1960, we've got an oddity here. Eden's Island by Eden Abbas, the Nature Boy. So he was one of this small group of people that basically were living the hippie lifestyle. They were vegetarians, they were doing yoga, long hair, beards, back in the 1930s and 1940s, way before other people were thinking that. And this is sort of an exotica album. He somehow became a songwriter. I think he wrote songs for like Nat King Cole and stuff. All right, let's talk about 1959. So, representing 1959, we'll dip into some country and western music. The western end of it, Hank Thompson's Songs for Rounders. This is, in my opinion, just a brilliant album. Cocaine Blues is probably the highlight on this particular record, but lots of songs about drinking and drugs and debauchery on there. 1958, we're going to represent with this 10-inch Elvis Presley comp, the best of Elvis. 8 songs, including stuff like Heartbreak Hotel. This was originally released as an 8-song comp on a 10-inch in England in 1958. This is a more recent French reissue of it. Le 25 cm de Elvis. 1957, we'll represent with a bargain bin find of mine. Shades of El Salvador. This is on the Bethlehem label. He was a jazz guitarist. A little bit of research. He had actually, I think he did one thing that came out on Blue Note a few years before this. Next couple of years we'll represent with some singles. So 1956, this is a modern reissue, but Sun Records, Johnny Cash and the Tennessee 2 with Get Rhythm. And on the flip side, I Walk the Line. 1955, Decca Records, Bill Haley and his Comments. Dim Dim the Lights was the lead of the 4 songs. So it's extended play 45. And I have a Similar Such Decca EP from 1954. So again, Beal Haley in the comments. Notice the lead song on side one is Shake, Rattle, and Roll. Then on side two, one of the songs is Rock Around the Clock, which of course became famous from the TV show Happy Days. Going to be kind of fudging things here. I'm going to represent both the years 1953 and 1952 with Charlie Parker. This Jazz at Midnight was a record store day issue. So Blue Note on the Midnight Blue vinyl. This was released on August 29th, 2020, which would have been Charlie Parker's 100th birthday. Also happens to be my birthday. 1951. So I'm gonna cheat with 1951. Gonna represent it with this Bebop 1945 to 1953 CD I have. And so, for example, coming from there are two songs from 1951 on here: Charlie Parker Quintet with Swedish Schnapps, Wardell Parker and Art Farmer with April Skies. And there's a lot of Dizzy Gillespie, a lot of Charlie Parker, a lot of Tad Dameron on that CD comp. 1950 and 1949, I'm going to represent with Miles Davis, Birth of the Cool, based on the fact that what was on this were sessions recorded in those 2 years, 49 and 50. 1948 and 1947. I'm going to represent with this Thelonious Monk, Genius of Modern Music. So this is a modern 10-inch comp released on Blue Note. The original comp was released, I think, in 1951, and so it was collecting some things that had appeared on 78s from 1947 to 1948. Thelonious Monk was with Blue Note in the very early part of his career. And again, we'll go back and represent 46 and 45 with this bebop jazz comp. So a lot of Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker tunes from those 2 years appearing on that disc. I'll also quickly mention that I've got this Risque Rhythm, Nasty 50s R&B tape cassette comp. And so this was something that Rhino had put out, I think, in the 1990s. Yeah. Which compiled some of the dirty, double entendre-filled R&B songs of the late 40s up to about the mid-1950s. Really beyond that, it gets extremely limited for me. So representing pre-war music, we can do Ramblin' Gamblin' Blues. So this is a rough guide comp of some blues songs from the 1920s and 1930s that all had a gambling theme to it. So, for example, you would have Tampa Red, Keep on Dealing, Play Your Hand from 1935. Blind Lemon Jefferson, Jack of Diamonds from 1926. That sort of stuff. Then some Greek folk music, 1907 to 1960, primeval Greek village music, Why the Mountains Are Black. So this was a modern comp released on Third Man Records. So, and so most of the stuff here is from the 1920s and 1930s. The most recent thing, so there's 28 songs over 4 sides. And since almost all of this was stuff that had been transcribed from old 78s, they warn you about there'll be some pops and scratches on it. The earliest song, so song 5 on side A of LP2, by an anonymous artist, Golfo, which is Greek for a ballad, which had been was something from Athens from 1907, which is going to be the earliest recorded bit of music music I have will represent the 19th century with a little bit of classical music. I have an extremely limited classical collection, limited to a handful of tape cassettes. So this is going to be stuff that was composed in the 1800s. Obviously, the performances on these tapes were not from the 1800s. So we got some Dvorak Quartet in G, Opus 106, which was composed in 1895 and it debuted in 1896. We got some Tchaikovsky 1812 Overture, composed in 1880, first performed in 1882, and then Beethoven's famous Fifth Symphony, composed 1804 to 1808, debuted in 1808. I don't have any Mozart, or Bach, so I can't go back any farther.